I'd like to welcome y'all back to another episode of Beyond the Fear podcast, a place where y'all come for motivation, inspiration, uplifting, and an overall positive message. I'm your host, DJ, and um, today's episode is just about forgiveness. As y'all know, I'm going through therapy, and my last therapy session was a big one for me because we talked about my father and me, my frustration with myself for not being able to forgive him for everything that's going on, or not everything, because I don't want to make it seem like he just put me through a lot, but just for him not being there. And then when I first met him, I remember vividly just trying to have a conversation with him about where he had been and all of this stuff. And he was just like, you can either forgive me or you can't. And at that time it was just like, okay, I'm looking at it. My therapist made me realize, just looking back on it now, that that was a moment where I was being very vulnerable, very open to the idea of forgiving this person who hadn't been around. I had a lot of anger towards, a lot of vengeful feelings about, but he was trying to come around. So the very least that I could do is meet him halfway. And so my version, at the time of meeting him halfway was, okay, well, just help me understand why you've been gone. I don't care where you've been. I just want to know why, you've been going. And I get it. Maybe as an adult, he felt like he didn't need to explain himself, or maybe he was too embarrassed to talk about, what he had been through, or he just may have been like, hey, I'm the adult, you're the child. I don't need to explain, whatever it may have been. But in that moment when he shut me down and I was trying to be open and receptive to him, he he just kind of shut it down, and that kind of set the tone for our relationship, or lack thereof. And we just never grew. And plus, because I didn't allow it, we just never grew any closer. And I understand that when my father passed away, he was a totally different man than the man who I had that conversation with when I don't even remember how old I was when him and I had that conversation, when he, tried to come back into our lives. Oh, well, when he came back into our lives, I don't know how old I was, but I understand that the man that he was when he passed away was totally different than the man that I talked to that day. But emotionally and mentally, I never allowed him to grow because I didn't forgive him. You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, he was always that person. So even though he had done some growing, he had done his work, and he was doing so many great things for other people. He became a pastor, so he was doing a lot of good things. But in my mind, he was still that same person that I talked to that day. And I never allowed him the space or the chance to get to know me, for our relationship, for us to even have a relationship, to grow. We didn't have a relationship at all. We had no foundation. And a lot of that was because, I didn't have the willingness to get to know him. In my mind, I had already wrote the book on him. I had already made my decision on who he was, and that's who he was going to always stay. And so now, all these years later, I see how much it's hurt me, hurt my development, especially emotionally and connecting with people. And it's just that last therapy session was a lot, because she even asked me, what does forgiveness for my father look like? And for me at the time, it was just like, I told her that it just means letting everything go, like letting all these feelings, all this emotion, my frustration with myself for not forgiving him, uh, forgiving him for not being there. It just like it just doesn't bother me anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like I moved past it. And she kind of made me realize that, you know, not everything works like that. You know what I'm saying? Forgiveness doesn't always work like that. Sometimes that even just acknowledging, hey, I'm not ready to forgive you is a step in the right direction, you know, because I think for me, I had this idea like, you know, I'm just gonna wake up and you know what, I forgive you, Dad. And now everything's good. Now I've released all of this built up frustration, this built up animosity, this built up resentment towards him that I've been holding on for 20 plus years. You know what I'm saying? I just let it go with those words. I forgive you. And, you know, and that's just not realistic. And she was just trying to get me to wrap my head around the idea that it's okay to say, hey, I want to forgive you. And I'm going to get there to some point to where I do forgive you, but I'm just not ready right now. And I think that for me, just hearing somebody tell me that, you know, just kind of it released a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It did release a little tension because I know I can't speak for anybody else, but I know for me, where I've always been told, you know, forgiveness is like it's like a monolithic thing. Forgiveness looks one way. You either forgive the person or you don't. You let it go or you don't. And so, you know, I think that just hearing, hey, sometimes forgiveness does work like that, but then sometimes the things that somebody did are so deep and it's rooted in you so much that sometimes that you have to forgive people in stages, you know, and I guess that conversation just kind of got me to realizing that forgiveness can happen, but it's not going to happen the way I thought forgiveness works, which is you forgive them in totality and then you move on. And it's like, no, sometimes things are so deep and, you know, and it's affected you to your core for so long that, you know, you gotta forgive people in stages. And I think that another important part of this, which is another hard thing for me, is forgiving myself, you know, and I know that I talk about how important it is. And I never really realized before, really, I would say before these past like 2 years, year and a half, I never really realized how important or how hard it is to forgive yourself for bad decisions that you've made, for mistakes that you've made, for, you know, just holding on to stuff way longer than you should have. And so she told me that that was like another thing that I have to do is I have to forgive myself. You know, in my mind, I tried, especially as a kid, trying to meet his father halfway the best way I knew how, you know what I'm saying? So the best way I knew how was just like, let's just have a conversation, talk to me. Like I want to get to know you, but I need to know you, you know what I'm saying? So like this is how I can break the ice with you. I can't just go straight into, oh hi dad, and you know, and let's go play catch or something like that, or let's go play basketball or something like that. Just wasn't me. I wasn't that type of kid, you know what I'm saying? Like I want to talk to you. I want to have a conversation with you. And so, you know, that was my thing. And I guess that's what he was. And again, I don't know. Like I said, we never talked because I never gave him any space or any room to get to know me. So we never really got a chance to talk. And maybe that was his expectation, was like, you know, just for me to be more warm and more welcoming and, you know, to treat him like a dad. But for me, yes, biologically, you are my dad, but psychologically, mentally, emotionally, you're a stranger to me. I'm open to the idea, but I want to get to know you. And the only way I can do that is by having a conversation with you. And so, you know, it just, and I just held, like I said, I just held on to it for a long time. And that's where I'm battling, you know, I'm battling with myself for holding on to it for so long. And I'm also battling, you know, with him. And especially now that he's gone, you know, I can't have that. I can't get answers for questions, that I thought I didn't need anymore, because I buried it so deep. I buried, my thoughts so deep that I'm thinking I'm over it, because mentally I understand, okay, he may have not been in the right place to be a good father. It may have been the best thing that he wasn't around, because he may have been a terrible father and he may have scarred me more being there than he did by not being there. Who knows? So mentally I understand, but it's just like emotionally it's hard for me to forgive. And what I'm trying to get, or what I'm trying to grasp, is that number one, that's okay. It's okay that that mentally I understand. Like, I can understand, hey, he may have not been in the best place, so him not being around may have been the best thing for me. But once he got to a better place, he did try to come around. So mentally I can understand that. It's just the emotional side of it, because it didn't work and it didn't go the way I hoped that it would. And because of that, I put up a wall when it came to him, and I didn't give him a chance to, because maybe he wanted to have the conversation later on, but because I was so bullheaded and so stubborn and so stuck in who I thought he was, that I didn't give him a chance to even be anything else, and be another version to show me his growth. I didn't allow for it. And so, I have to now forgive myself first and foremost, you know what I'm saying, for holding on to it, for not giving him that opportunity to reach out. Or even if I wanted to reach out, but my stubbornness was just like, nope, he's the dad, he should reach out. So, you know what I'm saying? So all of that stuff, forgive myself, and then in pieces start to forgive him, because, I think that it's okay that he wasn't there. It's unfortunate. Did it hurt my development? 100% did it. But but it's okay, because I'm here. I'm alive. I can say proudly that I've never been to jail. So there's some, what I'm saying, my life isn't terrible. It could have probably been a lot better, but it wasn't terrible, or it isn't terrible, and so it's time to start forgiving. But I had to realize that forgiveness doesn't have to happen in one go, that it's okay to break pieces off and say, hey, I forgive you for this, I'm letting it go. Another thing that she told me to do was to write a letter to him, just, or several letters, just putting down everything that I wanted to say to him, and just never got a chance to. And so I'm battling that. And I know it's because there's a lot of resentment still there for things that I didn't say, emotions that I'm going through that I didn't express, good and bad, you know. But I'm also very understanding to the fact that, because of who I am, or because of how I am, I buried that stuff so deep that even I didn't know that I was still this emotional about my father. I honestly convinced myself, because I buried it that deep, that, I wasn't worrying about my dad. I wasn't checking for my dad. I wasn't worried about him or who he was or any of that. I thought that I honestly thought that I was over it. But when I sit back and I think about it, what work did I do to get over it? How could I honestly be over it when all I did was avoid it? All I did was bury it, and I didn't think about it. And I just allowed myself to be convinced that I wasn't stressing about it, or I wasn't worried about it, because I wasn't. Day to day, I wasn't worried about it. But if somebody were to ever mention him, mention how I look like him, sound like him, act like him, whatever, it would trigger something in me. And so, me being who I am now and me being the understanding person that I am now, I can look back on those things and see, okay, it popped up in certain places when people would compare me to him. There it is. It's triggering something in me. So there is something there that's unresolved. It's an issue. But because I didn't know the things that I know now, I didn't know back then. I'm not thinking nothing of it. I'm just thinking, hey, just don't compare me to the man. That's all I ask. I'm not thinking, okay, there's something underlying there. There's still an issue there. Him and I need to have a conversation because I think that I got so used to him not being in my life that it just became normal. So it's just kind of like, what do we need to have a conversation for if we're in a good space? When we weren't in a good space, it was just a space where everything's good. There's no harm coming from me not talking to him not talking to me, us not having a relationship. There's no harm there. So now I'm just telling myself, so that allows me to tell myself, well, hey, we're in a good space when truly we're not. But again, no harm's coming from it. But I say all of that just to say it's got me rethinking this. That therapy session has me rethinking the way I view forgiveness because, like I said, for the longest time, it was like you just forgive somebody in totality, and once you forgive them, you move on. And so I think that most of the things that I've had to forgive have worked that way. And I think the reason why it's worked that way is because I've been allowed the space to work through my issues or work through whatever problems I have with somebody and then forgive them. So it feels like, okay, I'm forgiving you and now I'm moving on. But in truth, I did a lot of my work before actually saying the words, hey, I forgive you. I did a lot of the work for whatever the issue may have been, whatever was going on. I did the work and then I said the words. Whereas now it's like, but I'm thinking, right? In reality, that's what happened. But in my thoughts, I'm thinking, I'm saying the words and I'm forgiving you. So I've allowed myself to believe that in the past, when I've forgiven someone, I've literally just said the words and then, I let it go. But in truth, most of the time I've done the work. I've done the mental healing, the emotional healing that I need to go through. And then I've said, hey, I forgive you. But because I'm not even knowing that I'm doing the work, because I don't understand the work, you know what I'm saying, that's going into doing all of this, to doing the healing, to get to the point to where I can forgive or where I can let go, to where I can truly let go what this person may have done to me. I've done that work and then I just say the words. But in my mind, on the surface level, I'm looking at it, I'm saying the words and then, forgiving them, not even realizing that no, I've done so much work because I'm doing it without really realizing that I'm doing it. Whereas now with my father, because it's so in my face and it's so purposeful, I'm trying to do the work. I know that I'm doing the work. I know that I'm in the middle of doing the work and I'm trying to do the work so that way I can let go of these emotions that are tying me down, because I know that there's no just holding on to this stuff is doing nothing for me. It's only hindering me. It's only hindering me connecting with people and me being able to open up to people and have emotional and affectionate connections with people. So I know that I'm very purposeful with my work to forgive myself for holding on to it for so long, and then to forgive him for, number one, not being there, and then when he did come around, not embracing me the way I needed him to. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that he didn't try to embrace me the way that he could. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that that's what him even reaching out to my mom to say, hey, I want to meet the boys, I want to talk to them, whatever. That was his way of trying to reach out and embrace me and come together. But for me, I needed I needed I needed something different. I needed a conversation because again, I was not the type because again, I wasn't a very affectionate person. I won't say emotional because I do have a lot of emotions, especially a lot of anger and stuff like that. So I did have emotions, but I was not a very affectionate person. So somebody who I view as a stranger coming into my life, I'm not going to treat you like, oh, like I said before, let's go play ball, let's go play video games. Hey, this is what I like to do. I'm not going to welcome you into my world because I'm very guarded and I'm very protected about who I let in. But I was willing to try to at least have a conversation to see if there's room, if you can make room for me. And in that moment, at least when I look back at it now, he made me feel like there is no room for me. You know what I'm saying? That's what that conversation did for me. That's what he told me when it was like, hey, you can either forgive me or you can't. To me, all I heard was, I'm not making I'm not making room for you. Or I'm gonna make room for you in this way. I can't make room for you in that way. And so it was just an emotional, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was just him shutting me down emotionally, and it kind of cut me off from being able to be affectionate or to show the love and the care and all of these things that I needed to show. It was like just another person kind of shutting me off or closing me down. And so having that conversation with my therapist, it opened up my mind a lot because every time I talk about my dad, I go back to that conversation. And what I'm starting to realize is that I never, number one, I never forgave him, and I never let go of that feeling in that moment because in my mind, that's who my father was. You know what I'm saying? And in reality, he had grown, changed, evolved, did a lot of things. But for me, emotionally and mentally, he was still that person who shut me down all those years ago. And I never gave him the opportunity to show me something different. You know what I'm saying? To show me that he's grown, to show me that, he understands, hey, I made a mistake that day. It should have went different, whatever the case may be. Um, you know what I'm saying? So it probably would have been an amazing conversation. We may have been amazing friends. Who knows what our relationship could have been like? But you know, I can't change the past. But what I can do is do the work that I need to do to make sure that I don't stay on the path that I'm on. So it's just so that just kind of again, it just brings me back to um trying to figure out this forgiveness thing, trying to figure out how it's going to work. And I think, like I said, I think just hearing somebody tell me that, hey, even you just acknowledging I'm not ready to forgive you, or I don't know how to forgive you. I don't know where to begin, but I'm willing to. That's what I want. That's what I want my end goal to be. It's a step in the right direction. And so for me, I'm going to take the letters that I'm going to write. I'm going to take it seriously. I'm really going to really think about it, pour into what I want to say to him or what I want him to know and things like that, because I am ready to heal. I honestly didn't know how much of a hindrance or how much of a issue this has been for me, but I'm learning it. I'm starting to realize like how much it has affected me because like I said, I think that I buried it so deep for so long that I've allowed myself to honestly believe that I didn't have any anger or any emotions towards my dad. But when, like I said, when I look back on things and people would say, oh, you look like him, or just comparing me in any way to him, it would definitely trigger something in me. And now I can look back on it with the understanding that I have now and realize that, okay, something was going on, something was up there was clear signs that, you know, bringing my father up or comparing me to my father was a trigger for me. So, and now I understand why, or at least I understand more, or I understand better as to why that was, or why those things were triggers for me. So now it's just up to me to start doing the work so that I can forgive him piece by piece, little by little, and get to the point to where I can truly let go of all of the resentment, the anger, the frustration, all of that, that I'm holding on to and that I'm holding against him, for things that happened so long ago. But it makes me realize that it's not easy. Forgiveness isn't easy. But it also makes me realize that, forgiveness is for you. It isn't for the other person, because me forgiving them does nothing for him, whether even if he was alive. It may have eased his conscience a little bit, who knows. But honestly, it does nothing for him. It does everything for me. You know what I'm saying? That's what the forgiveness is for. It's for me, so that I can let go of that pain. I can let go of that hurt, because emotionally I'm still in a place where that 14, 15, however old I was at the time, I'm still in that place of hurt when it comes to him, in that area of my life when it comes to my father. And I haven't let that go. So I haven't moved on from it. And so, it's just kind of making me see how big of a chain that has on me, how big of a hold that has on me, and how much I've struggled with it, and how much it started to seep into other parts of my life, and it's made me struggle, just dealing with it, dealing with the emotion of it, the heaviness of it, and it just shows me how important it is to just understand people. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't realize in that moment how open I was, maybe even excited to be around my dad. But, but because things didn't go the way I wanted them to, it just kind of shut everything down. So it was like, no, I'm not doing this again. I'm not letting you do this again. I'm not giving you this opportunity to hurt me again. And I can honestly say that I've lived my life, a good part of my life, that way. Like, I'm not even going to give you this opportunity to hurt me. I'm not going to give you this opportunity to get anywhere near my heart, to mess it up. And again, I've ruined a lot of friendships, a lot of relationships because of it. And I'm just ready to stop doing that. I really am. I'm really ready to start letting go of this hurt and this pain, so that way I can stop spreading it. I can stop hurting other people because of my hurt. I can stop hurting my friendships and my relationships because of my hurt, because I'm holding on so tightly to stuff, because that's all I've ever known. That's who I am at this point. Because like I said, you got to think this is over 20 years of me holding on to stuff that is just kind of like, he's been I've turned him into like this bad guy, this villain. That's all I've ever known him as. So I've never even given myself the space to look at him any other way. And, and I want to look at him another way, because even at his funeral, just hearing other people talk about how he was, and the light that he was, and the light that he brought into a room, and, all the good things that, he did for other people. I would have loved to have gotten to know that person, but because I've built this story and this narrative in my head of who he is, and that's all he's ever been, and that's all I've ever allowed him to be. So I want to start forgiving, so that way I can truly, you know, just at some point get to know who he was after my interaction with him, who he grew into being, And so I understand, I know how important it is to forgive, but I see how hard it is, but I also see how important it is. And I also see that, forgiveness is for you. These are things that we talk about, things that I know that I've talked about. But like I say, talking about it and experiencing it are two totally different things. And now I'm experiencing how forgiveness is truly for you. And it's not, and again, it's not that I haven't experienced it before, but it's different when you experience something with the understanding behind it, to truly understand what you're going through, to truly understand, everything that you're seeing and everything that you're feeling. You can understand it. You can put it into words. You can put context behind everything that you're going through. And so, that's just the difference between things that I felt before and things that I'm feeling now, because I can understand why I'm feeling it now. I can understand the importance of feeling it. I can understand um, what stopped me from feeling it. So I think that the understanding behind forgiveness is what's making this way more tougher and way more emotional for me, is because I'm understanding the importance of forgiveness. I'm understanding the importance of why I need to start to let some of this stuff go, let some of these emotions and let some of these things go. And it's okay. And then just telling myself that it is okay to forgive my father. It is okay that I want to see him in a different light. It is okay to not only see him as the bad guy or the villain or the guy who hurt you or whatever the case is. You know what I'm saying? So it's just the understanding of, like, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? To start to let these things go. You've held on so tight to who you thought your father was, and you've held on so tight to all of these emotions, all this anger, all of this negative stuff when it comes to your father. When I think about my father, I just think negativity. Excuse me. And I've held on to it so tight that it's okay to finally start letting go. And I just had to give myself permission to just loosen that grip up a little bit and start to let some of this stuff go, and watch how better things start to come to me in return once I start to let this stuff go little by little. But man, that's today's episode, man. Just forgiving people is important. It's important for you. It's important for your growth. It's important for where you're trying to go and who you're trying to be. It's so important to forgive, but not just forgiving other people, but forgiving yourself and doing the work that you need to do to let those things go, and understanding that it's okay to forgive that person. I don't care what that person did to you, and the emotional and physical trauma and damage it may have caused you, but it is okay to let go of that anger that you're feeling towards that person. It's okay to forgive that person. Understand that your forgiveness does not mean that you have to accept that person back into your life. Your forgiveness does not mean that you have to give this person a second chance to be around you. Your forgiveness does not mean that you are giving this person another chance to do whatever they did to you again. It just simply means that you're letting that frustration, that anger, all of these things that you're holding so tight to, you're giving yourself permission to let it go. Give yourself that permission to let it go. Forgive them so that way you can move forward with your life and you're not staying stuck in that place. And when I tell you, this message is hitting home for me way harder than it used to, because again, now I have a better understanding, and it's something that I'm going through right now. But please, if you know that you're holding on to something because of what someone else did, it's okay to give yourself permission to finally start letting it go. It doesn't mean you have to forgive them in one go. You may have to forgive them in pieces, but it's okay to start letting those pieces go. It's okay to start chipping away at that wall, brick by brick, piece by piece that you've built up. It's okay to start letting those things go and forgiving those people for what they did to you and how it made you feel and how it stunted your growth. It stopped you from doing whatever it was that you was doing, but now it's time to get back on your path get back on your journey, get back to doing what you're supposed to be doing, walking in your purpose and not letting anybody stop you. So please start forgiving those people. Doesn't have to happen all at one day, at one time, piece by piece, little by little. Start letting that stuff go. Start forgiving those people so that way you can get back to doing what you need to do. But as always, I want to thank everybody for listening on whatever platforms y'all are listening on. And to everybody watching this on YouTube, please continue to share, like, comment, subscribe. And I want y'all to have a blessed day, a blessed week, a blessed month, and a blessed year.